ring if you're ready to care. Oh, let's talk power, let's talk speed. Hosted by the one and only We Too Deep. Turn it up loud, feel the power in your seat. This is Slapping Me, yes, Slapping Me.
Welcome back to the Slapping Me Community Show. It is your boy, We Too Deep. We are back here recording on the We Too Deep Entertainment YouTube page or wherever your podcast audio formats are found, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, so many different places, Amazon, however you listen to your podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. If you are watching on the YouTube, I'm trying something new. Sort of a merge between video and audio. So the way I typically do this is how I have been doing this is I would just record on OBS with a blank black screen. I would save the file, put it into iMovie, and then save it just as the audio. I tried where I would get on screen, on camera, and did it, and it's not something that I necessarily want to do on a normal basis, because those files are big. They take a long time to record, or a long time to export from iMovie and to post, and it literally would take like 4 hours a night to do the whole process. And so I want to try this to see how this is. And so if you're on the YouTube page, there's a background with the logo, because what I feel personally, because I see the videos, I check them out on YouTube, and typically what I would do to get them on YouTube would be I would post it on rss.com, which is where I host the audio format, and they have a button where you just click and it posts to YouTube as an audio, and it has like the album cover and like audio waves, and I just think it looks a little bit janky, if I'm being honest with you. And so I wanted to make something a little bit more personal, a little bit more like unique to the setup, without me necessarily being on camera. And so with that, also on the YouTube, you notice we changed some of the details. I wanted a better and more consistent. If you're on the Discord, we're going to talk about Discord here in a second. But if you're on the Discord, notice that the logo has changed for We Too Deep. I wanted a more consistent branding, something a little bit better. So there's a new logo there for the We Too Deep branding that sort of matches the red, black, and white of the Slapping Me that I kind of enjoy. With that being said, let's jump into the episode. We got a lot to cover. I'll just be honest with you. A lot of this episode won't be wrestling related, as I'm moving into how I do this a little bit differently. And talking about things that interest me, things that I see that interest me throughout, whether it's on X or Facebook, or just things that are happening in the news, other things like that. And there wasn't a lot in wrestling over the last 7-ish days that I really wanted to talk about. There's a little bit more now that I added today based on what happened last night on Monday Night Raw. And we'll cover some of that. But a lot of this is going to be sports related or something along those lines. And so stay tuned if you're wanting the wrestling content. Stay tuned to the end of the episode. That's where the wrestling stuff will be. As we go through the episode. I want to start this episode. I said we were going to mention Discord. If you haven't joined the Discord, link is going to be in the description or show notes. Please check it out. Join the conversation. But what I want to add is, I think it's been fixed. I don't know. But apparently, there was a glitch over the weekend on Discord. Where, from what is being said, the AI that they used to help identify potential accounts that are posting things that break the terms of services. And in this particular case, this AI was supposed to catch, like, sexual material that involves children. Child safety stuff, things of that nature. And this AI sort of had a glitch. Now Discord came out and said there wasn't an AI, it was just a bug that they found in the code. And there's a whole battle back and forth on social media about whether Discord's trying to cover up for this or whatnot. My conversation I want to have, this is one, to the people in my Discord. I would still be cautious when posting photos. Essentially, any photo that could be mistaken as like a grid. I know there's like Minecraft server Discords that like you couldn't post anything from Minecraft or because it could get you permabanned, which is crazy. But just be careful when you're posting photos for the time being. The rumor is it's been fixed. My conversation isn't really about the whole Discord thing. I'm not that big of a nerd to care that much about that. I'm hardly on Discord as it is. More so just monitoring the Slap Me community, We Too Deep Entertainment Discord. And I'm in a few other servers, but I hardly post anything. I'm more just, to be honest, I lurk a lot just to see what the conversation is. My concern with this, because I do believe it was an AI problem. Now, this is where I get conflicted with AI, because I'm a big proponent of the use of AI. I really am. I think AI as a tool is going to open creativity in ways that other people who, whether it's through publishing books, whether it's through creating stories, whether it's poetry, music, movie making, I think it's going to open up a market for people who typically would be pushed out of that market because of operating cost or starting cost or different things that sort of gatekeep the entry into creative markets. And I think it's going to make the cost of some of these things more affordable. And so I think AI, when used as a tool and not as something that controls you, but you control it, I think it's a good thing. Right? And so there's a lot of people who are afraid of AI for privacy reasons or, AI is going to come and take our jobs type thing. And this right here is why I'm not afraid of them for that reason. I'm afraid of AI for another particular reason, and I'll talk about that here in a second. But I'm not scared that AI is going to come after the jobs. I'm just not. Because it can hardly do functions normally. We're still going to need human beings in these positions. AI cannot replicate what humans can do by itself. It needs human being input. And so I think I heard a conversation on AI today, actually on the way home, on a podcast that I was listening to about AI and how one of the dangers of it, and I actually agree with this point, is that AI is really the first technology of its kind. For example, a hammer is technology, and a hammer was created for a purpose, to drive a nail, a screwdriver to put in screws, a ruler to measure things. A phone realistically had a created purpose, right? And AI is really the first technology that was created sort of open-ended. And that is a scary thing because it allows people who, when you have my worldview of we're all depraved, we're all wicked from birth, and unless you are a moral person, a person of high ethics and high moral character, and realistically, like, that's why, Christianity would say you need to, what we call, like, be regenerated, have a new heart given to you from the Creator, and be born again, as the Gospel of John would put it, right? That until that happens, like, you're depraved, everything you do is sort of evil. When you have that mindset like I do, it could be a scary thing to say, well, we're going to just let sinful, depraved people have this technology that can do whatever, which is why when you get into the depths of, like, the Silicon Valley techno nerds, who are marketing AI as this, like, transhuman, we don't need human beings no more, we're going to overcome death, we're going to find a way to cure all this thing to where no one will ever die. And what they're really, and it's really anarcho-tyranny at this point, right? It's transhumanism, it's craziness, let's just be honest. It's a little bit insane. It's the worldview you have when you don't believe in God. Like, well, if God doesn't exist and all that happens when we die is nothing, well, then anything is possible. In the fact that I'm going to try to stop death, I'm going to try to outdo death. And the problem with that is when you have my worldview is you understand that death isn't something that was initially occurring. It happened because of a curse, and the curse is still here, though there's a cure for the curse, and his name is Jesus, right? And he came to outdo death, and he actually defeated it itself, and you have to go through him to get the cure. And so man's imagination trying to find a cure to death to stop it from happening, well, unless you understand that the wages, like, you deserve death for the evil that you do, just naturally, for the wrong rebellion that you're in against the Creator, your wages is death. And the reward of your sinning and rebellion against this Creator that these techno nerds in Silicon Valley say don't exist, well, that reward is death. That death is actually a curse. It's part of the curse. It was the reward of Adam's first sin, right? And so I think that there's a place where, if given in the wrong hands, definitely a scary thing. But where I'm really afraid of AI is in this capacity, like what would happen with Discord, is it leading to false suspensions of social media accounts, or leading to arrest or false convictions, or things like that. Like what we're seeing with these flock cameras. I don't know if you guys are hearing the news about them. So there's a company, Flock, who's putting up a bunch of cameras, essentially. So it's a private company, and police departments around the country are buying these cameras, and essentially the service is we put up the camera, and then you have access to the database, but it's private, so it's not the government running the cameras, it's Flock running the cameras. And it's kind of a loophole around the idea of the Fourth Amendment. Like, the Fourth Amendment would say, if a police officer wanted to get footage of something, or try to, like, in order to arrest somebody, you would need, like, probable cause or a warrant to search something. If a private company comes to you and sort of plays this loophole and says, well, you can buy our cameras, we'll set it up for you, and you have access to whatever footage because you're buying our service. There's a sort of a loophole around the Fourth Amendment there. because it doesn't require a warrant for that to happen now. And the reasoning a lot of these police departments and city government are saying they're using the flock cameras is because of, oh, we're trying to find stolen cars or Amber Alerts. And they're trying to push this as like it's for your safety. But there's a lot of security, privacy, Fourth Amendment violations, and just possible wrongness. There's a story, I forgot where it's at, where it's located in America. But there's a story, there was this lady who's minding her own business at home, and the police officers show up at her house, knock on the door, she shows up, and they say, well, I have this flock camera footage of your vehicle casing these houses and stealing packages off of their front porches. And she's trying to sit there and tell her, it's not me, it's not me, it's not me. And this cop is saying, well, I got this flock camera footage. I got the pictures from the flock cameras. Trying to say it's her, come to wouldn't even listen to her argument, wouldn't even listen to say, I have evidence it wasn't me. I was here, I can prove it. He wouldn't listen to nothing. And so eventually it goes to court where she presents her evidence that shows that she's at home. She's literally on her Ring camera at home, in her house, at the time of these robberies. And it was just wrong. From the beginning, it was just wrong. And that's my fear, is a false accusation, a false conviction, a false suspension from some platform, or AI creating some sort of like, you hold this type of belief because you're researching this or writing this or looking up this or making content based on this. We're going to have like this back door because they're private companies that we're going to automatically report this to the FBI or whatnot, right? That is the kind of thing that I'm kind of scared of with AI. I'm not scared of it coming for jobs. I'm not really terrified of the data centers. I think there's a lot better ways that they could utilize it. I've even heard someone say like possibly like putting them underground, or because they're taking a lot of like rural area or like fields or whatever, like building like a community center or like a park or some sort of like memorial over top of, where you put the data center and the servers underground. You put like a park community center on top of it, or some sort of memorial that the community can meet at, or like a picnic area or something that's on top of the data center instead of building it above. I think that's a smart idea. I think no matter how you feel on the AI issue, it's going to be something that's an issue. It's going to be a reality. And so I think we have to jump on board. And again, my fear, though, is because of the openness, it's going to, like, in a society, so I think it was John Adams that said something along, you need, like, a moral and religious people to keep liberty, right? We kind of need a moral and religious people for this to work right. And because I don't see that in our culture, it's a little bit scary knowing that we're giving this power to these people, like these transhumanists, these anti-God people. And so it's a little scary, I'm going to be honest with you. All right, so we're going to move in now to my rant of the week. And the rant of the week is actually going to come after. I want to set up the context of what I'm ranting on. I saw this clip that I'm about to show you on Twitter, and I'm going to be honest with you, it kind of set me off a little bit. I don't like this clip at all. I'm gonna play it up. I'm gonna let you watch it in its fullness, and then I'm gonna respond to it in all of its glory. So, in order to do this properly, here we go. I'm gonna show you this clip, and we will talk about it when it's done.
to come here right now.
Some of these kids, and I call them kids because they're in their 20s,
Yeah.
and they've never had real jobs, and they're complaining things are expensive. Yes, things are expensive when you don't have a real job.
That's right.
Do you think that's getting traction, complaining?
Unfortunately, I do, because this generation, my generation, I hate to say it, Gen Z and those younger than me have been raised with just silver spoons in their mouths, just getting everything handed to them. That's not the values this country was built on. It was built on meritocracy and hard work, pulling up your sleeves, pulling yourself up from your bootstraps, and achieving the American dream. And we need to protect it with all we got.
Is it laziness?
A little bit.
Is it because the professors said the country's corrupt, it's evil, and we just need to shake them down and hand money out?
It's laziness, and it's the liberal indoctrination. You bring up a great point about our education system. However, I will say, a silver lining, so many parents that I talk to across the country are homeschooling, are turning to private education, are turning towards Christian schools across the country because they don't want their children being taught these communist and liberal ideas slammed down their throat. It's why President Trump in the White House has advocated so strongly for school choice across the country. We want kids to be taught to love our country. They should. It is the greatest country in the history of the world.
All right. I say, if they misbehave, just make all these young kids join the army, right? Shape them up. I almost had to.
Send them to Cuba. Send them to
Send them to
Iran.
Cuba.
They'll want to come back real
That's
quick.
a good point. They can say hi to the gay Ayatollah. Thank you so much, and welcome back, Karoline.
All right, so let me set this up. You saw the clip. So the two people there, that's Jesse Waters. That's his TV show. Prime time, Fox News every night. And it's Karoline Leavitt, who is our current press secretary in the White House. And before I address the points that they make, because I'm going to address that, because I just think they're wrong, and they don't live in reality. They don't live in reality at all. Like, they live so far out of the reality of the normal person and you can tell by the way they speak in this episode. But I also think it's important to recognize what network they're on. They're on Fox News. The main audience of that show, the prime audience of that show on that network at that time, probably is upper 50s, 60s, 70s. Right? You're not having a young person on that show. And so, one, I think a lot of this is they're just feeding their target audience content for them to agree with. But I also say Jesse Waters and Karoline Leavitt historically have been super out of bounds in some things in which they said. Like, controversial, just things that just don't make sense a lot of times, right? Just extravagant hyperbole. And now, I say that because, like I want to preface this conversation in a way that is logical. And not just, they're wrong, they're wrong. I do think they're wrong. But I think they're wrong not just in what they said, but I also, it's hard for me to take their point of view serious when you research their background. They're talking with the level of authority on this issue of affordability and the Gen Zers, they just have this silver spoon. They're entitled. They complain too much. They're lazy. Like, that's the type of messaging they're putting out there. I think it's dangerous. I'm speaking to my team. Like, you'll never see me put a MSNBC or CNN clip on here because that's talking to the other team. I don't need to talk to the other team. I'm talking to my team. I've sort of explained this. Right? I only talk to my team when they do something stupid. This is a stupid strategy because it doesn't actually win anybody over. From the Gen Z argument, like, there's no actual data presented. There's no well, this is how we fix the issue. Here's the problem. And that's the thing with conservative media. It's how it always runs is here's a problem, here's the problem, here's a problem. And it's never, here's the solution to the problem, right? And so I want to go over these guys' background because Jesse Waters in particular is super annoying. We'll start with Karoline Leavitt, though, who is 28 years old. She'll turn 29 in August. I am a month older than her, which is crazy. I thought she was much older, to be honest. But so she'll be 29 this year. From everything that I did in my research, she didn't really come from like super privilege, right? But it appears she lived comfortably. Her first job was at her parents' restaurant or like food truck or something. I don't necessarily remember what they had, but she worked there. She ended up going to college, getting some internships, I think with like ESPN, and then eventually the White House, where in 2016, in Trump's first term, she was the assistant secretary of the press, the assistant press secretary during Trump's first term, 2016 to 2020. And now she's the current press secretary of the White House. But we have to recognize what that position actually is, whether it's Republicans or Democrats. Press secretary is essentially the job of chief propagandist. Whether it was Joe Biden in office and you had, what was her name? I can't think of her name off the top of my head. You had the girl that we'll circle back to that. I can't think of her name off the top of my head. Jen Psaki, I think was her name. Right? And we'll circle back to that. Or whatnot. That's propaganda. The idea of the press secretary is to spin things in favor of the administration. It's chief propagandist. That's exactly what the position is. And that's exactly what she was doing to this audience. She was putting a spin on things that they would like to hear. She's clearly the mouthpiece of the boomer elites that employ her. And just for the sake of this, and these numbers will make more sense at the end of my argument here, just so people know, to all estimates that I have been able to find, and these aren't confirmed, the White House hasn't confirmed these numbers, but it's rumored that she makes like $195,000 a year. This is besides the fact that she at 20, what will be 29 this year, is married to a 60-year-old real estate mogul who makes a bunch of money in real estate. So she's definitely in the upper class. She makes about 2.5 times the average salary in America. And I'm going to bring up some numbers here at the end of my presentation on this topic that I think put things into perspective. Because she makes a lot of money, she makes six figures, she's married to someone who makes millions, she has the silver spoon, right? Now let's talk about Jesse Waters. Jesse Waters grew up, his parents, I think his mom was, either his mom or his dad, one of the two was a school teacher, the other was a child psychologist. He lived up north. Either way, both of them probably made good money for the era in which he grew up in the 80s and 90s. As a school teacher and as a psychologist, probably made some good money. His grandparents, I think his grandmother on his mom's side, I believe, was that the right lineage. One of his grandmothers was an editor at Better Homes and Garden magazine, so he has connections in the press world, and he also has connections in the political world because other family members, I think it was his great-great-grandfather and his great-grandfather were in the political realm, so he had connections, right? But outside of that, he lived very comfortably growing up. I'm not taking this from him. This doesn't make him a bad person. I'm using this to set up context of how completely out of reality Jesse Waters, in particular, is. With when he talks about affordability, when he says something as cold as, yeah, things are expensive when you don't have a real job. We'll talk about that in a second. But I want to set up how he's completely beyond comprehension of the actual issues the people who are complaining are like, he doesn't understand. And he doesn't understand because he doesn't have to understand. Well, he grew up privileged, and when I say privileged, I mean he grew up comfortable. Like, he grew up in Germantown, the Germantown area of Philly. And I'm not from Philly. I don't know if that's like a prestigious area or not. So I did research. So I said, genuinely, I was like, what is the demographics, or is the Germantown area of Philly considered rich? And AI put back, yes, Germantown in Philly is generally considered a wealthy neighborhood overall, though it has, it's not considered a wealthy neighborhood overall, though it has pockets of affluence and many beautiful historical homes. So he grew up in Germantown, but he attended some prestigious prep schools for his education before college. After college, like I said, his grandparents had contacts to get him into media, into politics. After college, his only job he's ever had that we know of on record is Fox News. It's the only employer he's ever worked for. He started as like a production assistant. Eventually, I think in like 2003, 2004, he made a debut on Bill O'Reilly's show. Eventually had his own segment on Bill O'Reilly's show. I remember watching him, Water's World, in like 2007, 2008, with my dad. Like, I remember when he first started getting on the scene. Eventually, when Tucker Carlson got fired in like 2021, 2022, he now has his own main. He now takes the primetime Tucker Carlson spot on Fox News. Fox News has been his only place he's ever worked, and is reported and rumored that he makes about $5 million a year. Now, none of this makes these people bad, and I will say it makes their argument bad. It makes the point they're trying to make bad. And let me explain why I feel this way. It's hard to take you seriously about affordability and expenses when you live well beyond the average person. Like Jesse Waters doesn't have to worry about living paycheck to paycheck and the rising cost of gas and all of this. So to him, sure, these are just spoiled kids who are complaining for no reason. Sure. Karoline Leavitt, $195,000 a year, Like I said, the average salary in America is about $65,000. If you take out people who make six figures and above from that salary range, the average salary then drops to about $40,000 to $50,000 a year. And so this argument that Gen Z and younger are complaining about affordability because they don't have real jobs, it's just absolutely crazy. Most of them are because they were fed alive from the boomers, which, by the way, the boomer generation was the definition of selfish. I'm just straight up. This is just the facts. They were handed a culture that was doing well after the war. They were born after the war in the 50s and the 60s, where they grew up, and they were handed a society that was doing pretty well. And they took it, and they took their comfort, and they outspend well beyond their means. The boomer generation has just completely destroyed America. That's not an excuse for the Gen Zers. It's just we need to set up understanding of what happened, right? So we live in a culture. I don't think Jesse Waters, and the part of this is because I believe they're trying to protect the image of the guy named Donald Trump, right? Leavitt, Karoline works for Trump. She's literally his press secretary. The Waters works for Fox News. He has to sort of talk positive about Trump, and or at least not talking a negative, right? You don't have to be positive, but you can't be negative. And I don't think people realize that a lot of the inflation, a lot of the price hikes, a lot of all of this is because of what Trump did in 2020. When he signed the CARES Act, when he put $7 million into currency that was unbacked by anything, and he overloaded the marketplace with this new money that literally he was just printing paper. It wasn't by anything, right? You inflate the economy and the money production, and everything was canceled, so nothing was really being bought, right? And so now we're getting inflation, and we started really seeing the impacts of this in 2021, 2022, right? Sure, Joe Biden lit the flame. Like, Donald Trump started the fire, and Joe Biden turned around, and instead of saying, oh, there's a fire, let's stop spending. But this is what the boomers have been doing since the 60s. Oh, there's a fire. We're just going to pass it down to the next guy, and the next guy, and the next guy, and the next guy. But even when things got bad in 2008, when the economy crashed, it wasn't as bad as it is now. Someone making... So a two-person house would need about $200,000 combined income to live comfortably. A single person by themselves to live comfortably. Notice comfortably is defined as 1 week's vacation, no extraordinary spending. Comfortable is just making enough to be able to save some and not living paycheck to paycheck, right? And being able to take at least like 1 week vacation. But this isn't like extravagant living. In order to do that, a single person living by themselves would need $106,000 on average, depending on where you are in the country. In some places like New York, Massachusetts, California, stuff like that, it's higher. In some places like Mississippi, Louisiana, some places in the South is a little bit lower, but genuinely it's above $100,000 and above, right? Is what you would need to live as a single person by yourself to live comfortably. That's pay all your bills, right? Then you add on to the fact that Gen Z was fed this lie that in order to get a job, you had to go to college. And so we sent from everyone born in the 90s and early 2000s have all been lied to and said, you have to go get a job. You have to go put yourself in six figures amounts of debt to get a job that's not going to exist when you graduate. And so people are getting out of college and there's no work. Or the jobs that are there are paying $40,000, $50,000 a year. I think there's genuine concern as to why young people, then this idea that they're lazy is crazy. I know people in my generation who are working 2, 3, 4 jobs. And it's not necessarily that we're lazy. It's we recognize the economy is changing. There are different ways to get jobs. I do agree that there are too many people who think that they can get YouTube famous. Like, I'm not delusional enough to think that this podcast is guaranteed to blow up. If it does, it does, and I'm happy for it. I think there are some people who think that they can make this their job and they're just going to stream and blow up one day. I genuinely, sure. But I don't think they're lazy. There's a lot of people put a lot of time into that. Into different aspects. They just... The problem is the boomer, Gen X, those two generations sort of live this perspective of you get a job, you stay loyal to a company, you work for 60 years, or, well, 30, 40 years. You retire, and you'll have life given, you'll get taken care of by the government after you retire. You'll put your time in, and you'll be taken care of. And what my generation, what Gen X is recognizing is, well, when I get to 65, there's going to be nothing there. You guys lied to me. And now I'm 6 figures in debt. That's going to take me 48 years to pay off. And there's no retirement when I work. Then you got people like Ben Shapiro who are saying, like, you should never retire. Well, that's easy for you to say, Ben. You literally don't do anything for your job. You talk into a microphone. You can do that until you die and be happy, Ben. But there's so, there's this elitist perspective. And I'm not saying the answer is the opposite perspective that MSNBC will say of we need communism. No, absolutely not. I think that there's a happy middle ground called free market economics. And my generation, hopefully we can steer the ship the right direction when we get into power and into control of government. The first thing you need to do is balance the federal budget, stop spending, cut spending, not just lower inflation. If the government inflates at 1% a year, it's still inflating. You have to stop inflation. Right? It's sort of like, oh, I only gained 2 pounds this year. Last year I gained 42. No, but you're still gaining weight. And that's a hyperbolic example, but you get the point. You gotta shed some of the spending. You gotta stop the spending. And so, like, the fix isn't going to be easy. It's probably going to take a recession. It's going to take another Great Depression-like event for us to correct. And we should actually allow the economy to course correct itself by popping the bubble. Let the bubble pop. Let's go through 10, 15 years of hard suffering. And I know that's hard to say, like, hard suffering, Great Depression type stuff, so that the economy can self-correct and we can flourish on the end of it, rather than continuing to kick the bucket like the boomers have done their entire lives and the Gen X have done their entire life. And now Gen Z has that option to either pick up and actually pick up the bucket, look inside of it, and fix it, or you can continue to kick it down to Gen Alpha, which is what, honestly, I think is going to happen. Because no one wants to be the generation that says, yeah, we let the bubble pop. But until that happens, it's never going to course correct. Because it's too much regulation. And a lot of that regulation was put into place by the very people that would agree with Karoline Leavitt and Jesse Waters. Like, this take just is completely asinine to me. I know people who are struggling. And they're working, bro. They're putting in time. 40, 50, 60 hours a week, and they're struggling because they can't afford groceries and rent and bills, but they're struggling. Like, it's this elitist perspective that just completely blows my mind from some of these people, especially on the conservative movement. That's where I see a lot of the elitism is from the conservative movement. Some of these talking heads who, they make large 6-figure salaries. And they're trying to tell someone like me who genuinely, after taxes, I make less than $30,000 a year right now. You're trying to tell me that I have a silver spoon in my mouth and I'm lazy and I can't complain about things being expensive. I just don't accept the premise because it's completely... it's coming from a place not of actual reality, where things are expensive. Go to the grocery store. Things are expensive. Gas is expensive. The cost of living is expensive. Rent is expensive. But you don't have to worry about that, Jesse Waters, because you make $5 million a year. You don't have to worry about that, Miss Leavitt, because your husband takes care of you, and on top of it, you get $195,000 a year. Not jealous. Some of them, but like this idea that they think that they've worked. Sure, I'm sure they've worked their asses off. Not saying that they have a poor work ethic or anything like that. I'm not jealous. I'm not hating on them. I'm just saying their perspective is coming from a perspective that doesn't have to deal with what the everyday people have to say and feel. Right? Let's move on to sports, though. The rest of this podcast is going to be sports and wrestling themed. Let's start with this, and this is going to be a phrase or a slogan, or I'm probably going to get ostracized for this opinion, this take. Being a Boston sports fan is hard, bro. And I'm going to be ostracized for that because someone's going to turn to me and say, bro, since 2000, you guys have like 11, 12 championships. What are you talking about? I'll probably end up being called a spoiled fan. And let's just be honest. It was only the Patriots that have been dominant since 2000. And when I look at the offseason over the last few years that these teams have gone through, let's just look real quick. The Patriots did a really good job this year. I'm not hating on the Patriots. Probably the most exciting team in the Boston area right now. The most competent GM right now is Elliott Wolf. But, like, I look at some of the other teams here in Boston. Let's just start with the Red Sox. Just absolute garbage. Team's not playing good. GM's manager, owner, from a whole concept level, just bad. Traded away your best player in Mookie Betts several years ago. Traded away Rafi Devers for practically no reason. And probably going to be sellers at the deadline because the team's just awful. And just no big splash plays, not willing to spend money. That's the Boston Red Sox, right? You look at the Boston Bruins. Well, let's go back to the Red Sox real quick. Sure, since 2003 World Series pennants, but there's never been a consistency of domination from the Red Sox. Right, the Bruins won the Stanley Cup in 2011. We win in 13 and 17 and lost. And we lost because we just didn't have teams that were competent enough. Probably weren't the best team in there. Right? But if we go back to the 11 Stanley Cup, why did we win? Not because we were the best team. We were the most physical team. And when we tried to play the cute little European style that the league eventually has turned into, with the speed and the skill and the agility and not running people into the boards, we just don't have the personnel to play that style. Coaching hasn't necessarily been the greatest. Upper management is definitely the problem with the Bruins. We're wasting Pasternak's prime like we wasted Bergeron and Marchand and Lucic and other guys like that. Trading Torrey Krug in like 2017, 2018 was a decision that I didn't like. Trading Tyler Seguin was also in like 2013 was also a decision that I just wasn't popular at all in Boston. And the Bruins have really just never been the best team in the league in forever. It's just they just haven't been. They've always played like the fourth best. They've always played as like the fourth or fifth best team, or just a pretty bad team, right? Then you take like the Celtics, right? The Celtics, sure, they just won the title, 2 years ago? But I've never seen I've never considered the Celtics like a powerhouse. I felt that, then we make this Jaylen Brown trade, and this is really where this is coming from. This Jaylen Brown trade gets made, And I'm going to be honest with you, I might be in a minority, but I liked Jaylen Brown over Tatum. I would have been upset if Tatum got traded, but I would have kind of gotten over it. JB was my guy, dude. I thought he was the life of the team. And then it comes out I don't think he actually wanted to be traded. That was sort of just a rumor that was being spread. I think there's a lot more in that story that's not being told as to why they got rid of him. And then you give him to the Sixers, who was the team that eliminated us from the playoffs, and they're going to be rivals this year. I like the Sixers roster. Like good for them. They definitely won that trade, in my opinion. I don't know. Being a Boston sports fan is really difficult when we have, like, mostly all the time. Like, even with the Patriots' dominance, though, it wasn't like we were making big splash moves with competence. It was we were able to play football because we had the best quarterback in the league, and we were able to build, essentially what happened was the league never really changed from 2000 to 2018. The league really didn't change that much in terms of style of play. And so Belichick never really had to adapt. But you notice when Belichick had to adapt to the change in football, when Brady left, and even like Brady's last year was kind of rough, but when Brady left, and we had to adapt to the changing world of football with guys like Mahomes and Lamar and Josh Allen coming in, and it being where defense wasn't necessarily as important. You needed to build a strong offense. You needed a strong receiving core, and the Patriots just didn't really have that. And so, like, even then, like, I feel like I feel like the Patriots necessarily weren't competent. They weren't making splash moves all the time. They just had the best player to ever play the position of quarterback, and they put some guys around him that he was able to build a culture with and win games. But yeah, y'all may call me spoiled, but I definitely think it's difficult being a Boston fan sometimes. When I see hockey free agency and basketball free agency and everyone's making these big splash moves, and the Celtics get Mitchell Robinson, that's cool. And then we sign like something like Mike Conley, and I'm supposed to like be happy with that. Or, the Bruins trade for at the draft. They trade for, I think his name is JT Peterka, something like that. He'll be like a second line winger, but he's not gonna, like, we need someone that can help score. Like, the problem with the Bruins is we don't have scoring. Like, Pasternak's really the only scoring we have. Maybe this helps, but then, like, we really parade the signing of a guy who's going to be, he's a defenseman, he's going to play, like, 10 minutes a game, he's going to produce very little, and we're going to, like, all right, get the duck boats ready, put them in the water, put them in the harbor, I guess we're winning the cup because we signed this. Like, we don't make a splash move at all. And it's kind of disappointing because, like, Pasternak needs someone to really help him here, and we just don't make that move, and it's kind of disappointing. So there's that. We'll move to another thing, which is, well, while we're talking about, I mentioned a little bit about basketball. Let's move to this. Let's move to the WNBA. I want to talk about this for a second. The WNBA is toxic, bro. As a league, it's just toxic. First off, it's a subsidy for the NBA. The NBA continues to fund it because they can essentially use it as a tax write-off. It makes them no money at all. It makes zero money at all. It's simply just a tax write-off subsidy for the NBA. That's why they put a lot of time and effort into it, because they can just write it off. But the WNBA has always been sort of seen as like the league for let's just be honest, lesbians. That was always sort of the stereotype of a WNBA player, was, black and lesbian, right? And here's, I want to preface this because this could get misinterpreted. I like basketball. I like women's basketball. I don't like women's basketball more than men's basketball at all. I don't. I see men play at their peak, and then I see women play at the peak, and it's two different sports. With that being said, the league has always sort of been positioned where, like, in order to fit in, you had to sort of agree with the idea that the league was for lesbians. Like, we can't get around that. Like, we can't. And so when you get a player, so the first player that I'm going to mention, her name's Candace Wiggins. She played like mid-2010s, if I remember correctly. And she was hated because she was straight. Now, she was a black female, and I mention that in a minute because the other two aren't, and I'm about to mention. Because the other two are going to take this to another level of toxicity of what the league responds to them with. But the league responded with Candace Wiggins essentially by being aggressive to her, essentially pushing her out of the league. She retired after like 8 years. Could have been a dominant top of the league player. She was a monster in college. But because she was proud to be straight and wasn't going to sort of give in to, they kind of ran her out of the league. We're starting to see the same thing happen to two straight white females by the names of Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham. Now, I'm the person that I don't tend to think in categories of race. I don't. I think this has more to do with the straight thing than it does the race thing. I'm going to be perfectly honest. But Caitlin's like proudly straight. Sophie's proudly straight and white, and kind of Sophie's more patriotic, I think, than Caitlin puts out. I think that's why a lot of people are sort of like, forget about Caitlin Clark. A lot of the support is going towards Sophie because she's a little bit more accepting. It's sort of like the whole Sydney Sweeney thing. Sydney Sweeney, just when she was getting hated on for the jeans commercial, she didn't sort of apologize for it. Caitlin sort of trying to appease the mob attacking her. Sophie's just sort of letting the attacks happen and not caring and just living her life. And that's right. It's just my perspective of this. But I mean, the treatment that Caitlin and Sophie are getting right now are just first off completely unacceptable. No league that should be taken serious would allow this to happen. Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham are your moneymakers. The only reason people really care about the league at all. Let's just be honest with you. They are your moneymakers. They are your superstars. I keep hearing. I saw a post. I think it was Emmanuel Acho. I could be wrong. I forgot who it was from, but I think it was him. But again, I could be wrong. Where Caitlin Clark was needed for a purpose, and she's lived past that purpose. We don't need her no more. It's absolutely asinine. I tell you right now, if Sophie Cunningham and Caitlin Clark left the league today, 90% of the people, I think, would stop even caring about the league. Like, it's sort of like this World Cup USA run, and we'll talk about the World Cup here in a second. That's the next topic. But it's sort of like, oh, the USA got eliminated. Now I can stop pretending that I like soccer, right? It's sort of like that. Like if Caitlin and Sophie left, I can stop pretending like I like the WNBA. I could stop it. Because genuinely the only person I care about in that league is Sophie Cunningham and Caitlin Clark. I probably couldn't name. I know Aaliyah Boston because she's on the same team, but I know Aja Wilson because she's like the big superstar, and then Angel Reese, of course, right? But like if you were to ask me to name like 10 players in the league, I could probably give you the 5 that I just named. The other player that I think of, I don't even think she's in the league anymore. That's Elena Deladon, because she's well past her prime, even if she's in the league. But I think that there's a toxicity towards straightness and whiteness in the WNBA. I think that there is. Mainly the straight thing. Like, this league has always been seen and stereotyped as a league for lesbians. And it's unique in women's sports because there's not a lot of other women's sports that feel that way or act that way. It's like very unique towards the WNBA. So let's move to the World Cup. We got about 12 more days of the World Cup, and what we've gotten so far has confirmed to me a few things about the sport of soccer. First, soccer is boring as all hell, bro. I'm sitting here and I'm watching the group stage, and the group stage is a waste of time. I did some math. Like 16 of the teams in the group stage didn't win a single game at all. And some of those teams that didn't win a single game at all made the knockout round. Cape Verde being one of them. Cape Verde tied in all 3 of their group stage games, which is got them second place because they were in a very weak group. I think they were in Spain's group or something like that. Spain had a very easy group. I don't think it was Spain's group that Cape Verde was in. It doesn't matter. But they had a pretty easy group. They could literally win 0 games. Tie in their 3 games, have 3 points, finish second place. Make the knockout round. You had like 14, 15, 16 teams that didn't win a single game in the group stage. Like, soccer's boring, bro. And there's like 5 legitimate teams in the world during the World Cup. And I don't know, man. Like, the sport itself is boring. Every time I watch it, I'm like, bro, if I was playing like the objective of the sport is to put the ball in the big net at the opposite end of where your goalie is, right? Why are we playing keep away? You're down by 3 goals and you're kicking the ball backwards. Like, press the ball. And this whole onside offside thing is kind of confusing to me. Not really, because I understand hockey a little bit, but I just, like, when I play FIFA, or it's now FC, whatever now, but when I play the video games, like, I get the ball to the striker and we just run. Like, just outrun the defense. Like, this whole strategy thing, find your run, blah, 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 blah. I don't get the game. I don't understand the game. I'm not even going to pretend to care like I like the game. I like certain players. Like, I found the new favorite player in hockey, or excuse me, in soccer, and that's Holland from Norway. That's who, with America out now, that's who I'm hoping is going to win the whole thing, is Norway. It's boring. But the second thing is, so I'm a big proponent that every sports league needs to remove instant replay. That instant replay is the death of sports. Because think about the NFL, right? We have instant replay on every play now, practically. At some point, we have to let the call on the field just be the call on the field. Because part of the sport is overcoming the unknowns of what the ref call is. So, okay, maybe they don't call a penalty. Like, in the NFL now, there's going to start being, like, challenges of penalties and whatnot. And it wouldn't surprise me if we get to a system where a penalty doesn't get called, say a holding doesn't get called, and the coach is able to challenge and go to a VAR-type system to see if there was holding. And we're going to start getting a lot more penalties that way. And it slows the game down. It ruins the integrity of the game, in my opinion. And so with that being said, VAR is stupid, bro. The absolute most stupid thing ever. VAR, for those who don't know, stands for Video Assisted Replay. And so, let's say something happened and it gets missed on the field, and the ref gets called over for VAR review, where they stop the play of the game. They run over. He takes a look at the screen with these people and sitting in front of computers, and they slow this thing down, clip by clip, frame by frame, and then they up at penalty. Here's a penalty, right? That happened to the U.S. We're about to talk to Balogun. Now, first off, what he did, in my general opinion, is a red card worthy thing. But if the original call on the field was no penalty, we should leave it at no penalty and just let that be the call. And referees make mistakes because they're human. And then you just overcome it. But then, just the absolute stupidity that came from this penalty, where the U.S. people, the fans in the U.S. were like, oh, it's not a penalty, it's a stupid red card, you got to reverse it, blah, blah, blah. And then we get the president involved, and he makes a call to FIFA, and now the call gets reversed and suspended. And then, so now he's able to play, and then he's the worst player on the field last night. Or pitch, excuse me. Balogun was the worst player on the pitch last night. And trust me, that's hard to do. America played like literal ass last night. I sat and watched the game. Was going to record the podcast last night, but sat and watched America play like shit instead. This awful game, bro. Just an awful game from America. Like, from every aspect. Like, the goalie acted like he didn't know how to play goalie at certain points. Defense was awful. Like, at that point, like, Balogun being on the field, I think hurt the team more than it helped. Was one of the worst players on the pitch the entire night. Just genuinely my opinions on what I watched. I think the whole thing was just stupid. I think VAR is stupid. I think replay in sports is stupid. Let the call be the call. Like, even now in baseball, like challenging balls and strikes, like if a strike is called and it probably should have been called a ball, but the ump called it a strike. Let the call be the call, bro. Like, we're ruining sports. Like, the whole idea of sports is you not only are good athletically, but you're able to overcome the unknown of the ref. And refs are humans. Humans make mistakes. And we're trying to get a perfect and fair game, and that's just not how life works. I think it's stupid. Generally, I think it's stupid. All right, so we'll move to wrestling now as we end this segment, or this show, excuse me. We'll give some Raw thought. I didn't watch Raw, but I have a couple things that I want to talk about. The first thing is Maxine officially joins the Vision, helping the Vision beat the Street Profits for the titles, and makes out with Austin Theory on screen. Kind of weird, but it is what it is. I guess it's fine. I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's not something that's going to get me to watch TV. I hope it works out for them. I just don't have, trust that it's going to work out. But we'll see. We'll see where this goes. And then the second thing with this episode is we had another title change, and that is, so Sami Zayn was supposed to challenge Cody Rhodes. Cody wasn't cleared, so they said that there's, an opportunity. Someone's going to fight for the title still. We get to the match. It's revealed to be CM Punk in Chicago. Like, no one couldn't see that coming. He comes out. CM Punk's now your undisputed heavyweight world champion, or whatever it is, the undisputed champion. He's got the SmackDown belt. And so, which led me thinking today, what's SummerSlam going to look like? So this is going to be my card predictions, what I think we're going to get. Well, we know we're getting Oba and Brock in a steel cage, Hell in a Cell. We know we're getting Seth and Roman. We know we're getting Liv and Io. So now the rest of these are like question marks. I'm assuming the match is going to be Punk versus Cody in some way. I'm assuming Punk versus Cody. My next question is then, what the hell are we doing with Rhea? Is Rhea hurt? Is she going to be at SummerSlam? Is she coming back? Can we figure out what we're doing with this women's championship? If she's not going to be there, can we strip her of the belt? Do some sort of tournament so we have clearer picture of this title? What are we doing with her? Right, so there's that. My next prediction, I'm guessing, is going to be like a fatal four-way for the IC belt with Penta facing Chad Gable, Dom, and either Rey Mysterio or Dragon Lee. I'm leaning towards Dragon Lee. Ultimately, what I would prefer is Chad versus Penta, and then Dom defending the Mega Championship against El Grande. But I think they're going to save that match for Triple Mania in September. So I think maybe we could start that feud with El Grande causing Dom the match here at SummerSlam. I think we're going to get a Gunther versus Nick Aldis match. This makes the most sense. Gunther loses a title bout. He comes back and he faces, similar to like a Pat McAfee situation when he lost the title to Jey Uso, he went after Pat McAfee to get his steam back, right? So now he can go after beloved Nick Aldis, and Nick Aldis and him can wrestle. Also could kind of be like, I'll put you out of retirement. I'll put you into retirement. Aldis has never wrestled in WWE. I think this is their, hey, let's get you your one match to say you wrestled in WWE. And I think, having Gunther retire him is cool. At the same time, my next question is, like, what are we doing with Sol Ruca? Apparently she hasn't been on TV all but 90 seconds since winning the title. I'm assuming we'll get the Vision versus Alpha Academy in some way, shape, or form, be with the whole Maxine thing. Trick versus Mello, Blake Monroe versus Tiffany, I guess could be it, and then Fatu versus Solo. Maybe, probably. Apparently the MFTs broke up. I didn't know about that, because what I was going to do was Fatu and the Usos versus the MFTs, but apparently the MFTs broke up last week. I didn't realize. I didn't get the memo. Sorry. Don't watch SmackDown. So I'm just kind of like wondering what SummerSlam's going to look like, because if that's the card, genuinely the only match I care about is Brock and Oba and Roman and Seth. Genuinely. Genuinely. The only thing I care about out of what I just mentioned is Roman and Seth and Brock and Oba. And I think those are your main events. I think those are your main events of each night. I think you end the night with a Brock and an Oba on night one, and I think you end the whole thing night two with Roman and Seth. So the next thing is, I want to talk about Danhausen for a minute. As we're we're about a week and a half away from Saturday night's main event in Madison Square Garden, which Danhausen's the poster boy for because it's in New York. As we're getting closer to that, I've heard some things and some thoughts about Danhausen, and I have some thoughts about Danhausen. In particular, two thoughts. Two things that I think about Danhausen that is the truth, with how successful Danhausen will be. So first off, JD and, was it Dom, said, challenged for to take on whoever Danhausen's going to throw at him at Saturday night's main event. And I think I know exactly what it's going to be. Danhausen will bring out his cloning machine, and he will be the one that will be able to bring back and re-debut Enzo Amore and Big Cass. I think they're going to be the ones that walk out of the cloning machine. It's not going to be Miz and Kit. It's going to be Enzo and Cass. Enzo from New York. Enzo and Cass being a big team. I think Colin Cassidy. I think Big Cass is from up north as well. So that'll be I think they'll get a big pop. You put them with Danhausen, and it'll pop. I think it'll work. Like, for even if it's just with Danhausen for like a show or two. Enzo and them, I mean, can still play into the comedy thing as well. But the more important thought that I have on Danhausen. With how successful he has been, I think what they're going to start doing with Danhausen could be quite dangerous in the future. And I think that Danhausen, so this thought isn't original to me. I think it was from Santi that I heard it first. I could be wrong with who I attributed it to, but I think it was from Santi first. But so I want to give credit there. Like, this isn't an original thought. I had it in the back of my head, but I'm not the first person to say this. I think they're going to use Danhausen as the get out of jail free card for their poor booking in the main event. Look at how they booked Liv Morgan at Night of Champions, right? They should have never put her in this tournament, and they really shouldn't have booked her to be in the finals of this tournament. So in order to sort of clear themselves of this bad booking, she gets cursed. And it's just bad booking on WWE side. And they kind of had a get out of jail free card by using Danhausen as the sort of comedy prop to sort of clear them. Oh, no, see, man, the booking is that Danhausen curses people. I think it's just inexcusable for how bad some of the main event booking is being. I'm just going to be honest. All right. So now let's bring this thing home. It's been a longer episode. Let's bring this thing home. I saw the video the other day, sort of going back to the whole FIFA World Cup thing. We had a lot of Europeans in our country, in America, to experience the World Cup. And I saw a video the other day that I am so glad that I saw, because I've never felt more justified in a belief than when I saw this video in particular of this Scottish man. He's from Scotland, here to watch the Tartan Army. And he goes to Chick-fil-A. And I've been very vocal about Chick-fil-A. I think Chick-fil-A is very mid-fast food. And what I mean by that is, and here's what I mean by that. If you say to me, hey, Randall, we too deep, we're going to Chick-fil-A, you want to come? I will always 100% say yes. I like Chick-fil-A. But the flavor of Chick-fil-A is mid. It is mid. That's right. I will never once say Chick-fil-A is the best. It's quick, easy. You can always trust in Chick-fil-A. Their honey pimento sandwich is great. I love it. Right? But the fries are mid. The chicken in general is kind of mid. It's just bleh, right? It's like, this is serviceable. It's very good for what it is. Price point's probably a little too high now. But, like, it's not a 10 out of 10 experience. And so we get the Scottish man. Now, here's why I feel justified in my belief. If you guys know anything about UK, United Kingdom type cuisine, I mean, these are the type of people who, like, I think the Scots eat haggis. Like, if you were to search what is the popular Scottish cuisine, these haggis, which is sheep heart, liver, and lungs mixed together with oats, onions, and spices, cooked in the sheep's stomach. Right? They like black pudding, which is, I'm pretty sure, blood, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So black pudding is a sausage made from pork blood mixed with oats and spices. So they like that. They like their beans and toast. Now, that's what they call like a full Scottish breakfast or English breakfast. If you took out the black pudding and the beans, their breakfast sounds pretty good. Tomatoes, you can take that out too, but honestly, but not bad. But like beans and toast, like that's what they like, right? And this guy, they don't have the most popular palate. Like, you wouldn't ask a Scottish person for what's a flavorful meal. I'm just saying that, right? And he comes over, and this is supposed to be like a delectable experience, right? Chick-fil-A is supposed to be like the God experience of fast food. And he says mid. It's all right. Or I've never felt more vindicated, more justified in a belief. When he said that, I paused the video and like pumped my fist. Because it's justification. If he thinks Chick-fil-A is mid and he likes black pudding and beans and toast, but he doesn't like Chick-fil-A, this just tells me Chick-fil-A is mid, bro. A mid experience. All around. Never felt more justified in my life. But with that said, thank you all for listening to the Slapping Me Community Show. I'm We Too Deep, your host. Thank you all for listening. Don't forget to click the Discord link. Join the discussion. Let me know what you think in the comments as well. Like, share, subscribe if you're listening on audio. Hit the follow or subscribe button depending on your service that you use. Leave us a 5-star review if you liked the show. And until next time, I will see you all. With that being said, next time, let me actually end it with this. I'm taking the rest of July off. There's just going to be a lot going on. The plan is I'm taking the rest of July off. That's the plan as of today. Y'all know that could change. Kind of an impulse decision, to be honest with you. I start my new job next week. I don't know what the schedule's going to look like, and I'm just trying to figure all that out. So, more than likely, this is the last episode of the month. More than likely. If it works out to where I can still record next week and the following weeks after that, we might do something. But I may not have a lot of time to plan episodes all that often. We'll see. But the current plan is this is the last episode of the month till I get settled in this new job. And then we'll get back to a normal recording schedule, hopefully in August. But with that being said, I will see you guys on the next episode. Enjoy the rest of July. More than likely, there's probably going to be another episode. I'll figure something out. We'll see. We'll probably definitely have a Summer Slam prediction video, but at some point, even if it's just a short. But we'll see. More than likely, this is the last episode, but we'll see. I'm not going to stand on that. But again, thanks for listening. I'll see you guys on the next one. Have a great rest of your week.
So hit that subscribe, come along for the ride. Whether it's NXT or NFL time, going in the ropes and fourth and deep. Slapping Me Community every Tuesday. Help community, yeah. Help community, yeah. Every Tuesday, every Tuesday.